Describe what the wings are. Describe what the wings are, and then I'll start asking questions.
They are wings that replace your current spinning wing decoy wings.
Okay. Excellent.
That's what the wings are.
So tell us why somebody would want to replace the current wings that they have on their spinning wing decoy.
Well, I mean, the logical reasons would be that they broke or that they lost them. They sunk to the bottom of the marsh. There's a variety of reasons why somebody would need to replace their wings. Moving into why we invented the wings would be the supplement of our wings into the current wing set that you already own, right? So we can supplement our wings into certain different environments. So let's take a step back to fishing, right? I'm a huge fisherman. I love fishing. I'm fishing the U.S. Open in Mojave here in another week. I'm prepping for that, so I'm excited about that. But bass fishing and duck hunting are at the soul of my being. And with bass fishing, we don't just take one lure and go out fishing. We go out with one lure and they don't bite it. Then we go and we take the lure and we go home. But that's what we do with spinners, right? We take one spinner, type of spinner, colored on one side, white on the other, wing shape generally. We put it out, and if our birds don't come into them, if our fish don't bite, we take them out. We go home. Why don't we change what we give to the animal? So if I go out in the morning, I'm throwing a topwater popper. I'm going to catch my fish on poppers and stick baits until they stop biting topwater. Once they stop biting topwater, I don't pack up. I'm switching over to reaction. I'm using chatterbaits, Alabama rigs. I'm going jerk baits, something to get their attention and get them to bite reaction. If they don't bite that, I don't just pack up and go home. I'm picking up my drop shot, my Senko, my jig, right? We're changing what we give the animal depending on the animal's behavior. And generally, we change our behavior when the animals flare off of our given bait, right, if you will. So what Bluebird Waterfowl is introducing with these wings is different shapes, different sizes, different colors, so you can change what you give the birds. When they flare off of one type, you switch it to a different type, different shape, different color, different speed. Gives you an opportunity to continue using your spinning wing decoy instead of just going out with one lure and going home when the fish don't bite it, right? So aside from that, the reason we started this project was that I thought wings should float. I don't know why they don't, but now they do. All of our wings float. They're made of a hyperdense foam. It was extremely difficult to get the balancing right. Again, with the connectors, this isn't something that, you know, I took a bunch of Mojo connectors off and then put my wings on and hot glued them. This is a start to finish 3D project on Fusion 360 on the computer that I'm on this video on right now, starting from nothing, moving into a completely rejuvenated system of attaching the connector to the wing. So they don't pull off ever, they don't spin off ever, and they all float. So that's what's important to know about Bluebird waterfowl wings. So that's probably the best place to start on why and what the wings are.
It is pretty silly when you think about it. Why the hell don't they float, right? That is the number one question that comes to mind. It doesn't make sense.
I mean, Jeff, opening day of teal season this year, you nearly lost a wing on one of your spinners.
Yep, came off twice. And luckily we were in some shallow water and some vegetation, and it was just kind of
it was hanging up on the vegetation. Yeah, I went back to pop it back in, and as I got there, it flipped off the vegetation and it started to sink, and I grabbed it 6 inches below the surface of the water.
Yep. Mm-hmm. You know, there's something
I've lost them before.
Yes. Yeah.
There's with business, there's folks who make razors, and then there's folks who make razor blades, right? So the razors are the permanent thing that you hold that hold the razor blade. You know, the companies that make the most money, they make razor blades. You know, you got to keep replacing them. And of course, when you've got 1 million customers replacing razor blades constantly, that guy's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. But the guy who sold the quality handle sold it once. So we decided early on that we wanted to make razors. We didn't want to be a razor blade company. We wanted to make products that would last a lifetime. And even if you did lose them or break them, they would be covered. And that's what we did. And that's what we're going to continue to do. I don't know how the wings are going to turn out because we just sold our first, I think we've got about 420 20 sets left out of the first 2,000 that we've ordered for the season. We're going to find out real quick how George's lifetime warranty interacts with the wings. But from our testing, so far it's been great. I did get a phone call from one of our prototype testers. He goes, "Hey George, I want to let you know I was carrying the Decoy through some corn and the wing broke." And I'm like, "Okay, well, this is what I've been waiting for these phone calls. How did it break? I said, did you like drop it into the corn? Did a corn fall off and hit it? Did you walk through a stalk? Like how did it break?" And he goes, "Oh, I don't know." He said the connector just snapped in half. And I said, the connector can't snap in half. It's injected fiber-filled DuPont nylon. It can't. The foam would break before the nylon would break. Just, science. Turns out he had been hunting with one of our prototypes that he thought was the finished product. So that was the only break so far, was a prototype break, which they break. They're prototypes. They're 3D printed, So I was expecting to hear more back from these guys who are hunting with them, but the only thing that I've heard so far is limits with the 6-inch high vis. So they seem to be doing their job really well.
I say maybe that's the next thing to talk about, is like looking at as a Lucky Duck guy. There's you got a 8-inch floating slow motion, 6-inch floating high vis, 9-inch floating low light, and 11-inch low light. What's the differences there, and what have you been seeing more people buy, or what are you like? What's your guidance on the options there?
So there's 100% chance you have my website pulled up. Nobody calls them that, but me.
Yeah.
I'm glad because that's their purpose, right? So the high visibility are exactly that. They're high vis. There's in the fishing industry, I was a captain for a long time. There's something that we said, that lure was designed to catch fishermen, not fish, right? So they got all these fancy, jerk bait looking things that people are casting out for yellowtail. They don't want to bite. They want to bite a giant piece of metal that looks like a donkey turd with a treble hook on it. That's what they bite. They're called surface irons, and that's just what they bite. But people buy all this fancy stuff thinking that they need it, that they'll give them the edge to get that bite over the other fishermen. Duck hunting's become the same thing. It's become the same thing. And I love a high quality product. Don't get me wrong. AVNX makes a beautiful decoy. The new Mojo Mallard has an amazing, a lot of these guys are using wood, like champion wood carvers to start their molds. Like these are beautifully carved, blow molded bodies for these decoys. And I get it. If you wanted to keep it in your living room, I get it. If you want to kill ducks, it doesn't matter. It doesn't at all. It doesn't need to look like a duck. It doesn't need to be the right species. It doesn't even need to be the right shape. The most powerful product I've ever hunted with, we hunt here in California, is called the Blade. And Mojo just patented.
I was just going to bring that up. I listened to a whole podcast about the history of the Blade and the California Blade. It's a big, that's where it started, and the idea behind that all started in California. So that's funny. I was going to mention that.
Yep, and I'm constantly in contact with the creator of that product, and he's just never had to patent it. He builds them out of his garage. He's always behind. He's always backed up. And I've talked to him many times. I'm like, dude, get a patent, push this thing out to the country. I'll help you organize your stuff. We can do it together. But that's just not how he rolls. So here comes Mojo and says, well, I'm going to go ahead and put a patent on this thing. So I did remind Matt is his name. I was like, even though Mojo patented it, there's something called prior art that gives Matt the right to continue building it, even though Mojo might have a patent on it. So it might prevent guys like me from making it, but it doesn't prevent the originators from making it. So long story short, these things have been around for 25 years. If you don't know what it is, it's 2.5 feet long. It's 10 inches tall. It's got a white side and a black side, and it sits on a football goalpost. It is the ugliest piece of metal that you will ever see. And we crush ducks with those things. Crush them. They'll land right next to them. They look nothing like a duck. They're not the size of a duck. They have no wings. They have no shape. They have nothing. In fact, they squeal when they spin. Right? Crushes ducks. So if we can get that concept inside our head, that it doesn't need to look like a duck, it doesn't need to be the shape of a duck, and it doesn't need to do anything but what it's supposed to physiologically do, which is scientifically attract waterfowl using a strobing effect, Now we can talk about why I did my wings. Because my wings don't look like wings.
Mm-hmm.
They look like paddles. The small 6-inch, they spin fast and they're very high vis, very similar to like a Mojo Flocka Flicker, right? So you can take a standard decoy, pull your wings off, and put on this small paddle and turn your decoy into a very high visibility, small Flocka Flicker style paddle, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let me close this down here. I've got Discord on with my son, and I just heard him log on. I could just imagine he's like, Georgie. So the larger 8-inch, right? So this is my version of the blade. This is George Parker's version of turning a standard decoy into a blade-sized machine, right? 8 inches, giant paddles, slow spinning because they catch air, right? So they slow the wing speed down about 20 to 30%. Black on one side, white on the other. And when they spin, dude, you can see these things from 500 yards away, just thumping. And that's why we made them. They're called the high visibility slow motion. So if we know that this strobing effect has a positive reaction to birds in the early season, we have to ask ourselves why, right? Why in the early season do spinners work well and in the later season they don't? It's not because in the early season the birds forgot what a spinner looks like. It's because the birds you're shooting are first-year birds and they've never seen one before. You're shooting young birds that have not interacted with that strobing effect. It's a scientific, Terry Denman, the owner of Mojo, calls it an ocular reaction. Yep. So it's a visual reaction, scientific attraction to this strobing effect. So these birds fly over, they see the strobe, they go, other birds. I'm safe with other birds. And they come right down to them, which is why they were so hyper effective for the first decade they were around. But that's also why they flare later season birds and older birds, the second, third, fourth year birds, the veteran birds that are harder to shoot. They feel that same trigger. They feel that same ocular reaction. Let's call it a feeling instead of a visual thing, right? Because if you've ever stood next to a strobe light, you can close your eyes and you still feel it. You can feel that light hitting your body. You can feel that light hitting your eyelids. You might see something, but it's more of an environment, a feeling. So if that feeling is triggered, when birds see this strobe, they feel safety. Veteran birds feel that trigger. They see danger. They hear gunshots. They know there's trouble. Now, well, why did the birds come all the way down and flare right, when they were getting ready to start working close? Because if you stand away from a spinner 300 yards, you barely see it. The birds don't see it. Okay. They get down close enough where they can see it. They feel it. They know immediately, I've done this before, and they flare off, which is why we pull our decoys out of the water. Well, when bluebird waterfowl first came out, the answer was the animator, right? Well, since they're flaring off our decoy, what can we do with the decoy to utilize this duck-shaped motor to still attract ducks because the wings aren't working? So we made the animator where you snap them on, set the plate height to the water, and introduce water sound wingless. Now we can use our spinner as a water motion and sound device. But when we made these wings, I asked myself why these birds are flaring. And if the answer is an ocular trigger, then the answer to getting them not to flare is to remove the ocular trigger. And how do you do that? How do you take a strobing effect and remove it? Paint both sides. So there's no white side on our low lights. They're colored on both sides. In fact, most of the wing is not only the same color, it's the same tone, it's the same shade. So not the whole wing doesn't strobe or flash. Just the feathers on the outside go from a lighter brown to a darker brown, just to give the feeling of motion, but there's no strobing effect at all. So when you use the low lights, it completely removes the ocular strobing effect, therefore removing that danger trigger, but keeping that 3D wing effect in the spread. So you can change your wings depending on how the birds are reacting to. So let's say in the morning, we're using our 6-inch high vis, the sun's not up yet. We're crushing some teal, maybe some woodies, getting some, some of the smaller flybys. and then the sun comes up and the big ducks show up and they're flaring off your 6-inch. Pull off the 6-inch, put on the low lights. Keep that 3D effect in your spread. We have 2 different sizes, 9-inch and 11.5-inch, so you can decrease or increase the profile of your spinner, kind of like buying an oversized floater. Let's say that they're flaring off of your low lights. Take them off and put on the animator, wingless, completely wingless. We're not taking our decoy out yet. Now we're attracting ducks using water sound, adding water motion to the spread. And as the morning goes on, the sun goes high, the weather calms down, and those birds are flying 200 to 300, 400 yards up above you. Spoiler, they don't see your spinners. They're on a mission, and it's not to stop where you're at. How do we get their attention? And that's where a blade style product has really found its home. These guys in California hunting are hunting pressure birds, generally flying from refuge to refuge with no intention on stopping in the marshes. But if we can grab their attention from that height, we've been known to peel off entire flocks, not just a few birds, but you'll get the whole flock to turn down, and then you'll peel off 5 to work. Putting on the slow motion, high visibility, mid-morning to late morning when those birds are up high, grabs their attention from super far away to where you can start working birds again, especially if you have a remote. Get their attention, get them working, turn it off, start calling using the animator, whatever else, pulsators and jerk cords, uppers, downers, screamers, shakers, whatever your favorite thing is, and kill your birds, right? But the wings are designed to be carried with you at all times. You want at least 3 sets. A high vis, a low light, and your standard wings that came with your decoy. Now that's a lot of crap to carry around. So we brought out our new wings bag. And the wings bag is rubberized mesh. So it dries your wings. It has 3mm floating plastic sheet in the back that floats on its own inherently. So you can put these wings inside a wing bag. What I'm recommending is you have 1 wing bag per spinner with at least 3 sets of wings per spinner. High vis, low light standards. Then you take these bags and they sit perfectly with each other. They could put them right in your decoy bag, right? So if you're hunting high vis in the morning, you have high vis on everything. If you're going to switch off a high vis, you can't just switch them off one decoy. It doesn't do anything, right? You're going to flare them off with the other high vis. So you got to pull them all off, put on your low lights or put on your standards. So having these wing bags allows you to store your wings safely, dry them in the process, and then change your wings and change your hunt depending on the bird's behavior that day.